Chapter 26. Robinson and His Birds. Of all the things he saw on his journey, Robinson was most delighted with the birds. They were of the most beautiful colors. The forest was full of them. They gleamed like jewels in the deep masses of foliage. In the morning their singing filled the air with sound. Robinson had never taken much notice of the birds at home, but now every living thing attracted him. He loved to see them happy. He would watch often by the hour and learn the habits of nesting and getting food of nearly every bird on the island. Robinson did not know the names of many of the birds he saw on the island. He had to make names for them. The strangest thing he saw on his journey was the nest of what he called the yellow-tail. This bird lives in colonies and makes its nest at the ends of the long leaves of a mountain palm. When he first saw these queer-looking sacs hanging from the leaves, he was amazed. He had never seen so strange a sight. From the end of each great leaf hung a long, closely woven nest. Robinson could not make out at first what they were. Soon, however, he saw the birds come out of the mouths of the nests. Here, 100 feet from the ground, they hung their nests, but they were perfectly safe. He had not gone far from the tree in which the yellow-tails had their nests when suddenly startled by a voice crying, "Who are you?" Robinson was greatly frightened and hid beneath the drooping branches of a cedar tree. He feared every moment that the owner of the voice would make his appearance, but it kept at a distance. Every few minutes from the depths of the forest would come the doleful cry, "Who are you?" Robinson did not dare to stir from his hiding place. He remained there overnight. After the night came on, he heard the strange voice no more. The next day he renewed his journey. He saw many birds that were wholly strange to him. There was a kind of wild pigeon that built its home in a hole in the rock. It was a most beautiful bird with long, slender, graceful feathers in its tail. He saw the frigate bird soaring high above the island. The number and beauty of the hummingbirds amazed Robinson. They were of all colors. One had a bill in the shape of a sickle. The most brilliant of them all was the ruby-crested hummingbird. Near noon, while Robinson was shielding himself from the scorching heat of the sun in a deep shaded glen, he was startled again by the strange voice crying, "Who are you?" He lay quite still, determined if possible to allow the voice to come, if it would, within sight. He heard it slowly coming up the glen. Each time it repeated the cry it sounded nearer. At last he saw spying at him through the boughs of the tree under which he was lying a large bird with soft, silky feathers of green and chestnut. Who are you?" said the bird. Robinson could not help but laugh. He had been frightened at the cry of a bird. But the bird that interested Robinson most was the parrot. There were several kinds of them. They flew among the trees with great noise and clatter and shrieking. Robinson determined, if possible, to secure one for a pet. "I could teach it to talk," he said, "and I will have something to talk to." As soon as he returned home he set about catching one. He noticed that a number were in the habit of visiting an old tree near the shelter every morning. He planned to snare one and tried several mornings, but he could not get one into the snare. He tried to hit one with his bow and arrow. He at last succeeded in hitting one and stunning it so that it fell to the ground. He ran rapidly to pick it up, but before he could get to where it lay in the bushes it had disappeared. After thinking the matter over, he concluded that it would be much better to get a pair of young birds and raise them. The old ones would be hard to tame and difficult to teach. It was easy enough to find a nest in a hollow tree. He secured from the nest 2 birds just ready to fly. He made a cage for them out of willow rods. He placed the cage at the entrance of his cave and studied how he would feed them. Much to his surprise, the parent birds discovered their young ones and brought them food and fed them through the open work of the cage. When the birds were grown they rapidly learned to talk. Robinson took great delight in teaching them. He taught them to call his name, and when he came near they would call out, "Poor old Robinson Crusoe." These birds remained for many years with Robinson. In fact, he was never afterward without a parrot. They helped him to pass away very pleasantly many hours that without them would have been sad. Another bird that Robinson loved was the little house wren. This bird was exceedingly tame and friendly. It was a very sweet and strong singer. It loved to make its nest in or near his shelter. There it would build and rear its young, within reach of his hands, while its throat was always bursting with melody. The mockingbird, too, always nested near, and awakened him in the morning with its wonderful song. Robinson became a great friend and favorite of the bird inhabitants on the island. They seemed to know him and showed no fear when near him. This pleased him very much. End of chapter 26, Robinson and his birds.